For the very last time, wahaha, welcome back to a Fangtober video, but it's a little different. Today we're going to be looking at all of the sketches throughout the sketchbook that I filled up for the year of October, what felt like a year, 2020. So today I'm going to be showing you all of the different sketches and sketch pages, and this month I will also have these as PDF scans over on Patreon, so if you're interested in that, you can head on over and check that out. Also, before we get into the video really quick, I want to let you all know that I do have a Kickstarter running right now for the Fantastic Vampires coloring book. It includes all 31 of these drawings, and we are currently 43% funded, so my goal is to get this funded, and then maybe we can hit some stretch goals before the end. It ends on December 1st, so if you're interested in getting any of the rewards or stretch goals or the coloring book itself, head on over. I will have a link up on the screen, and I will also have a link in the description. I do want to let you know that you won't be charged until I believe the campaign is over, and if it doesn't get funded, you won't be charged at all. So just a little tidbit. I do have a video on it if you want to check that out. It's over on the Kickstarter page as well. But anyway, let's get into the video. Alright, so let us get just right into it. So the first off, I always leave the first page blank. I'm really weird. I would rather leave the first page blank. And then we go on to what is actually in the sketchbook. So first off, I have the swatches from the items that came in the Art Snacks Inktober 2020 box. This is where the sketchbook actually came from. And I have the little sticker here and just some notes and stuff. But I don't really like inks in this sketchbook. That's why I just went ahead and swatched them out really quickly. But yeah, I mean, I think this page is fun. I always love doing swatches in my sketchbooks. Also to note, I do not typically use this side of the paper. Again, another weird thing, I just don't. So my sketchbooks tend to fill up a lot faster. This next page is the art sketches that accompanied the video over here. So I drew some watercolor mushrooms, and it was actually the sticker pack for Patreon. And I really, really loved them. These were really fun to draw. I got to look up some really fun references. Then we start with day one, blood, and all of them have like the prompt up at the top, so you know what day it is. And then I tend to try to do 3 thumbnails, so here's just some doodle scribblies. Initially I was going to have her drinking like this, but I really like the idea of this pose, and so as you might have seen, that is what is over there. I will link the playlist to all of my Fangtober videos up here if you want to check it out. Then we have day 2, which was death. And I pretty much came up with this idea really quickly. So as you can tell in the thumbnail, I had a person sitting on a chair. Originally, she was going to be surrounded by a lot of bodies, but that's not really how it worked. So I worked on the pose and designed the chair over here with some references. Thank you, Google. And I decided I wanted like a dead person. And then I did a little color comp of how I wanted the background to look. Day number 3 was bat. And I really wasn't sure what I wanted to go for with this one. At first, I wanted to do like a person who was a bat, like a vampire who had bat wings. But then I found this really fun pose on Quick Poses, and I don't even remember. I think they were like interacting with a house or something, like they were standing on a roof. But I decided to kind of Frankenstein it a little bit and have her interacting with a vampire bat, or bat in general. And then I just kind of put like this little brick wall texture in the back, but I really loved this piece. It was really sweet, and it was just like a little moment, and I really liked it. Oh, my hand's already getting crampy. This sketchbook's heavy. Day number 4 was youth, and youth was kind of an ambiguous term. I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do with this prompt at all. I have a few different thumbnails here, and it actually started from right to left. So this was my first idea, just kind of a person looking over their shoulder, wiping some blood on their arm, and then this next one, they were just kind of like smearing it across their face, which I did end up coming back to later on. But the third one was a vampire dumping blood on themselves, and that is what I ended up going with. I really liked this. The idea was kind of like she bathed in the blood of her victims to keep herself young or something, which apparently was an actual thing. Maybe like I subconsciously knew that, but like I didn't know it, if that makes sense. I feel like I've heard that before. But thanks to one of my friends, they were like, yo, this is like Elizabeth Bathory, and I was like, that's so cool. So, yeah. Anyway, day number 5 was bite, and I could have went the traditional neck bite route, But I kind of wanted to do something a little different. These pieces were meant to be pushing myself, so instead of doing that, I did a little bit of like perspective on the character. At first she was going to be biting something like an apple or a pomegranate, and I didn't really want to draw a pomegranate if I'm honest. So I went with my second sketch, which was this one, and I really like this pose. Of course, this person, it looks really tiny. It looks like she ate a child, and that's concerning. So I ended up making the person larger in the final image. But I really love this pose, and I really liked everything about it. It was really fun for me. If you can't tell, I actually really liked most of these pieces. I'm very proud of myself for a lot of these pieces. So day number 6 was Ravenous, and Ravenous and the next prompt were very similar, so I tried to do something different for both of them. So for this first one, I was going to have them, I think, like laying down, interacting with like wrists and body parts to be eating them. The second one was what I ended up going with, is where they're caressing the arm. And then the third one was kind of the same, but they were on their knees and you could see more of the body. Phoebe, really? You gotta destroy stuff? I'm trying to film a video. So yeah, and then I didn't really like how this like thumbnail turned out, so I ended up doing another one, and it looked a little bit closer, but the final illustration looks the best, I think. It looks just really good, but the premise of this piece was basically that she's sitting like on the floor of a dining table, and there's like a body on top of it, and she's licking the blood from their arm. So day number 7 was a piece that I did digitally, but I did a lot of these sketches beforehand, and today's theme was Bloodlust. Now, Bloodlust and Ravenous to me were very similar, so I decided to try to do something a little different. So the first thumbnail was like somebody making a snow angel, but like out of blood. Then the other one was a little bit similar to what ended up happening, just kind of like this pose. And then this one you might recognize if you followed my daily prompts. I really like this pose, but I felt at first it was a little too much for YouTube. But I ended up doing it anyway, so there's that. But I wanted to go more of the lusty route of Bloodlust instead, so I went with this. Day number 8 was Mirror, and I pretty much came up with this idea pretty quickly. This was the first one I did, but I decided to do a second one, but I still kept coming back to this idea, so it was just like the back of a character. And this was when I was still kind of like getting used to digital, so the piece came out really simplistic, as did the day before's piece. But, as you might, if you followed along with Fangtober, you might have seen, I progressed pretty well, actually, with digital art, so I'm pretty proud of that. Day number 9 was Garlic, and I actually did an Art Snacks unboxing for this one. I knew I wanted her to have garlic underwear, so, like, that was the thing I knew I wanted. And I found some poses on Quick Poses, but nothing I really liked. This one I think I had the most trouble with as far as thumbnailing. After I finished this page, I ended up doing the sketch and inking for the one that you might have seen in the video that I did not end up doing. I ended up coming back to the sketchbook and actually drew on this side of the page. Did a little bit more thumbnailing and came up with this one. The butt looks a lot better in this one. Then we have day number 10, which was Red Lace. This one was a little bit simpler, and I came up with it pretty quickly. I knew I wanted a vampire just kind of like dabbing their mouth. And in the original, the napkin or doily or whatever the heck, handkerchief, that's the word I'm looking for, it looks like a doily. It was lace, but I ended up making it a little bit less lacy, but it still was kind of lacy. So anyway, this is a simpler piece, but I did really enjoy it. Day number 11, which was Masquerade, and I had a few thumbnails here. This is the one I ultimately went with, but I wanted to do a few others. I actually liked this one as well, but I felt like this one worked better for a background and stuff. At first I was going to have her holding a wine glass, but in the final she's not holding she's just like leaning up against a table. And then I also, oops, wrong way. I also did like a little mask design, but I did the piece too small, so the mask design, you really couldn't see it. Day number 12 was Heart, and this one was one I was really excited about. I knew immediately what I wanted to do, so there's only one thumbnail, but I had the character eating a heart, and it doesn't look anatomically correct, and that's totally fine with me. But this one was really fun, and I loved it. Then we had day 13, which was Fangs, and I wanted to go a little out of my comfort zone, do a different like pose, expression, everything. And I really liked this. So the first ideas I had, though, was like a vampire biting their finger and showing their fangs off. But then when I sketched this one, I just knew that it was meant to be, and I really liked this piece. This one was probably one of the most fun ones to draw. Then we've got day 14, which is Feast. I did this one digitally. I I pretty much knew what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to draw the vampire on a table interacting with humans, but I wasn't sure how. So this thumbnail, you can't really tell, but it's them laying like front on. So like here's their head, their arms were hanging over the table and their hair and stuff. But I ended up going with like a 3/4 view with them on the table and then they're like holding up an arm of a person. But yeah. This piece was fun. It was challenging, and it was the one I had done, like, the most elaborate background on, so I was pretty proud about that, but I think the backgrounds just got better from here. Day 15 was coffin, and again, I knew pretty much immediately what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to do, like, a pinup pose inside of a coffin, and I just looked up a really quick reference on quick poses just to get like a little reference, but it's pretty simple. Actually, this is probably one of the simpler pages. Then we had day 16, which was steak, and I did this for a Paletful Packs box unboxing. I wasn't sure how I wanted to go about this one either, but as you can tell, I had a few different like ideas, but here I ended up going with like a little pinup pose, and she's holding a little steak. And in the coloring book illustration, she's actually sitting on a body in a graveyard, and it's got like blood on the tip of it. It looks really cool. So the hunted has become the hunter. Then we have day 17, and I practiced with a little bit of head perspective. I had a few different ideas, and I ended up doing the blood smearing across the face. I think this one would have been cool too, to have them like clawing at the neck of a victim, but this is the one I ultimately went with. Then we have day 18, and day 18 I think is where this really started to ramp up for me. So day 18 was Crypt, and I drew this really fun punk person, and I think the thumbnail is better than the actual illustration because you can see more of the victims. But yeah, I just had them sitting on a sarcophagus. Thank you for letting me know what that was. I did just a really simple background, but I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. There was leaning over a sarcophagus, laying on a sarcophagus, but this one was the most fun. They're just kind of like chilling, and I love it. Day 19 has to be one of my favorites, and that is Ancient. And I had no idea what to do for this theme initially, but the idea was that she's a really old vampire, and once she discovered books and literature, she decided to collect everything she could get her hands on, and she had her own personal collection. And I just love this piece so much. I love the sketch. I love the final piece. And it came to me really quickly too. So I don't know, I have really fond memories of this piece, and it's super cute. So day 20, Holy Water. I guess I don't have to hold this, huh? Anyway, day 20, Holy Water. I decided to do an anti-nun, so it's like unholy water. Found a pose on Quick Poses. I love Quick Poses, if you can't tell. And actually, I think the pose was of a nun, so I think that inspired that. But in the final coloring book page, there's like a church, and it's burning in the background, and this was like gasoline or something. And I know it's super sacrilegious, but I think it's fun. But anyway, this pose I think turned out better in the sketch than it did the final, but I still like the final, so, you know, whatever. Day 21 was Chalice, and I was really inspired by one of my favorite, like, guilty pleasure shows, Rain. I love that show. I watch it, I feel like all the time, but it's not all the time on Netflix. Anyway, yeah, I decided to do something a little bit more, like, 16th, 15th, 14th century. I don't know. I'm not a history buff. But anyway, like, I don't know what centuries this stuff was, but I wanted the character to be holding a chalice, and I actually kind of like drew out the chalice here. Did a little background, which didn't end up turning out the way I wanted it to in the final, but I still think it turned out pretty good. And again, a lot of these pieces came to me really quickly. Then we have day 22, which is Blood Moon, and this one was a digital illustration. I found a reference photo. It wasn't a reference photo, but I found a photo that really inspired me. It was like a tree that looked like it was cupping a blood moon, and I really loved the idea, so you can see some little thumbnails, and I ended up going with her holding a dagger, but in the final she's actually licking the dagger, but in the sketches she's just holding it downwards. But this piece was so fun for me, and I think it's probably one of the best ones I did, at least personally, during Fangtober. Alright, so for day 23, I did an unboxing for Upcrate, but I did a few thumbnail sketches here, and I really wasn't sure what I wanted to do, but a few things kind of remained that I wanted this character to be, like, crazy and have a knife. This is kind of the one that went, it's like a mix of these two. She's kind of like having her hand up here and she's giggling. She's got, well, in the thumbnail, she's got a heart on her knife, but in the final, she has a hand on her knife. But I ended up painting this in acrylic, and it ended up looking really cool. It wasn't my favorite piece, but I think it turned out pretty okay for somebody who doesn't usually use acrylics. Then we have day 24. Remember that pose that I said was a little bit too sexy for YouTube? Yeah, I ended up doing it anyway. I really just, it stuck with me throughout those days, and I thought that it would work. And this kind of works like, who's the pet here? Is it the vampire who's on the chain, or is it the human who's being dominated by the vampire? I don't know. I really liked how this piece came out. I did it digitally, and I did a lot of experimenting in that piece, but I think it turned out pretty good. And then we have day 25, which was poised, and I wanted to do something kind of simple, and I also really wanted to draw a moth. So I ended up drawing this character, and she's kind of holding a parasol or an umbrella. In the final, it's raining, so I guess it's umbrella, but, and she's kind of interacting with this cute little moth. But yeah, and I kind of wanted to do that throughout all of it, but you may see in these thumbnails I actually have a character that's kind of like sitting and there's a fan, and this will actually bring us to day 31 eventually. I really love the pose of this in general, so I wanted to reuse it. But anyway, this is what I ended up going with for poised, and again, I loved it. I like a lot of these pieces. Then we have day 26, which is Bloodbath, and I wanted to do something a little simpler, but when I made the prompt Bloodbath, I already knew that I wanted a vampire in a bath of blood, just kind of like day number 4, but not quite. So she's kind of like posed in a bathtub, which I got a reference from Google, and she's got little flowers and rose petals or whatever kind of surrounding her, and this piece was really fun. It was super simple for me. It didn't take me very long, but I think that it worked. Like, it worked. I don't know. I liked it. I like all of them. Then we have day 27, and this one kind of tripped me up. I did a lot of thumbnailing for this one, and actually, some of the thumbnails really didn't make it, so I knew that I wanted the candles to frame the piece, and I knew I wanted two characters, like, interacting, like, with a traditional vampire bite, but I just couldn't get the composition right. But I ended up going, it was closest to this one here, where they're just kind of, like, back in the background having a little moment, and they're girlfriends, and yeah, that's pretty much all there is about it. They're just having a little moment. But anyway. Then we have day 28, and I also did this one digitally, and actually, the funny part about this piece is it kind of grew on its own. I don't know. So I initially started out with this pose, and I realized it was really simple to the feast one, which I think was day 14. So I ended up wanting to do like a laying down pose, but when I started doing it digitally, I was trying to figure out like an outfit, and at first they were going to be like a princess or something, somebody of royalty, but then they ended up turning into a pirate, which I thought was really cool, and I don't understand why I didn't even think of it until it kind of went to that way, but I really liked it. Then we have day 29, which was in the garden, and again, this is another digital piece. This piece I struggled with a little bit because I picked some weird color choices, but I think it all turned out pretty good in the end. This is one I pretty much had in my head from the beginning. I wanted a character just kind of like elegantly sipping a teacup of blood. In the final, there's like a hand over here, which is a little morbid, but I really just overall like the idea. Then we have day 30, which was powerful. And powerful is kind of one of those terms where you can really interpret it any way you want, but I just kind of wanted her to be like in a power pose. She's like holding a head, and she's kind of like showing off her victim. And I also did these like little hand studies over here, which I love this hand. Hello. Anyway, also, what is this? It looks like a head's growing out of her head. I just not noticed that. That's weird. But anyway, I love the sketch a little bit more than I ended up liking the final piece, but I think that's pretty standard for a lot of my pieces. I always love the sketches a little more, but I ended up referencing my own face for this pose, and I actually am glad I did that because it turned out pretty good. Then we have the final day, and I left this one up to kind of like whatever I was feeling that day because I really wanted to just have a day where I could chill and do whatever the heck I wanted, and I went back to that fan and Japanese inspired piece because they didn't really fit into any of my other themes. I'm sure I could have made them fit, but I didn't make it fit, so I just decided to do it for day 31. So I did quite a bit of thumbnailing here, and this is kind of what I ended up with. I ended up doing a different hairstyle, but I don't know. I really like this piece. But anyway, that was all 31 of the drawings for Fangtober. and I hope you enjoyed this little sneak into my sketchbook. It was really fun for me to do all 31 of them, and again, don't forget, if you're interested in the Kickstarter, getting a coloring book, I have digital, I have where it'll be sent to you, physical, that's the word. I have stickers and prints that are exclusive only to the Kickstarter, so if you're interested again in checking that out, there will be a link up here. I want to thank you all so incredibly much for sticking around my Fangtober. I want to thank you for watching this video and hanging out with me. And until the next video, my adorable squidlings, toodaloo! Also, I totally forgot to plug it, but if you aren't already part of our cute squid pod, there's a subscribe button down below. It's free, and if you click the bell next to it, you'll be notified on when I upload new videos.